In the summer of 1966, the West German team thrilled fans around the world, riding a dramatic journey at the World Cup held on English soil, under the grey skies of London, with a talented generation of players that were the perfect blend of youth and experience. They displayed a disciplined yet flamboyant style of play. They were a tank that lumbered into the final with a solid defense and sharp counterattacks. Despite losing in the controversial final to hosts England, the match of the legendary Ghost Goal, they not only won the runners-up title but also became part of the painful but proud memories of an entire generation of German football lovers. But behind those glorious and bitter moments on the Wembley pitch are players with very different fates. More than half a century has passed, time has carved cruel traces on their lives. Some became immortal legends, some chose a life of seclusion, and some had to stop their journey in tragedy. Let's look back at the ups and downs of the players who made up the soul of the West German generation of 1966 that year. Franz Beckenbauer was only 20 years old at the time, but was already the soul of the midfield, a shining gem. With a graceful figure, head held high and poetic ball handling, Beckenbauer was not a worker on the field, he was an artist. At the 1966 World Cup, he scored 4 goals, an unimaginable number for a deep-lying player. The performance of the future emperor, at the age of 20, demonstrated a bravery and tactical thinking ahead of his time, laying the foundation for the modern libero concept. After the success and heartbreak at Wembley, Beckenbauer's career not only went up, but it reached heights few have reached. He became the Kaiser, the emperor of world football. He led Bayern Munich to dominate Europe, leading West Germany to the 1974 World Cup as captain and repeating the feat in 1990 as coach. He was a symbol of absolute success, a man seemingly born to win. Off the field, he was a talented manager who had a great role in bringing the 2006 World Cup back to Germany. His life was always covered with a halo, respect, and even legal disputes in his later years related to FIFA, but he always faced them with his innate calm. The most interesting thing to think about is the connection between his role on the field and his real life. On the field, Beckenbauer was always in control, calm and composed. Off the field, he was the same, always the center of attention, the guide and leader. The image of a gallant emperor on the field was applied to his life, turning him into an unbreakable monument of Germany. However, that glorious journey had to stop. On January 7, 2024, Franz Beckenbauer passed away at the age of 78, after a long battle with illness and declining health, leaving the football world in endless grief. His passing marked the end of an era, but the legacy of the emperor will forever be immortal. Uwe Seeler would have been the heart if Beckenbauer had been the brains of the West German team in 1966. At the age of 29, with the captain's armband on his arm, Seeler was a diligent striker, a warrior who never gave up. Although not tall, his ability to press, his brave aerial battles, and especially his bicycle kicks became his trademark. In that year's tournament, he not only scored but also dropped deep to play the ball, sacrificing his ego to serve the common playing style, being a solid spiritual support for his juniors. The career of Uns Uwe, our Uwe, is a love song of loyalty. In the era of football starting to be tinged with money, he refused a $1 million offer from Inter Milan to stay with Hamburger SV for life. He did not have a huge collection of titles like Beckenbauer, but he had something more precious: the unconditional love of the fans. After retiring, he became a successful businessman thanks to his prestige, and once held the position of president of the Hamburg club. His personal life passed peacefully with his wife Ilka, a happy marriage that lasted more than 60 years, away from noisy scandals. The parallels between Seeler's on-field and off-field persona are uncanny. On the field, he is hard-working, honest and dedicated. Off-field, he is a symbol of humility and loyalty. He represents a generation of Germans who worked hard to rebuild their country after the war, modest but proud. However, the great captain finally had to rest. On July 21, 2022, Uwe Seeler passed away peacefully at his home at the age of 85. He left, taking with him the image of a folk legend who taught the football world that loyalty is sometimes more brilliant than gold cups. Helmut Haller was a constant source of creativity, a literal ball thief. He held the final ball for decades. At 26, Haller played with Latin flair and skill. He scored the opening goal in the final at Wembley and was West Germany's top scorer in the tournament with 6 goals. Haller brought spontaneity, a breath of fresh air to the iron discipline of the Germans. After the 1966 World Cup, Haller's career continued to flourish in Italy, where he is considered one of the greatest foreign players in Serie A history. Playing for Bologna and Juventus, he was a true star, enjoying a glamorous life, being sought after by the press and living a colorful life. However, behind the spotlight, his personal life was full of turmoil with broken marriages and health problems. However, he always maintained an optimistic smile and a burning love for football, regularly participating in community activities in his hometown of Augsburg. Haller's image on the field and off the field seemed to merge into one, a romantic, talented but also troubled artist. He lived fully for the present moment, whether it was a finishing shot on the field or the joys of everyday life. But all good things must come to an end. On October 11, 2012, Helmut Haller breathed his last at the age of 73 after a long battle with dementia and Parkinson's. He passed away, but the image of the blonde midfielder with the ball from the 1966 final will forever be a beautiful symbol of German football. Hans Tilkowski, the 30-year-old goalkeeper at Wembley that year, was the embodiment of calm and sure-footedness. He did not flaunt his ball, but caught it with precise judgment and positioning. Yet, by a cruel twist of fate, he was an unwilling witness to one of the most controversial moments in football history. Jeff Hurst's shot hit the crossbar and bounced off the line. Although he and his teammates insisted the ball had not crossed the line, the referee allowed the goal, and the moment would haunt his career forever. After the tournament, Tilkowski continued playing at the top level for a few more years before moving into coaching. He is a man of principle and compassion. Away from the pitch, he devotes much of his time and energy to charity work, helping poor children and those in difficult circumstances. He has never forgiven the linesman's decision in 1966, but he has not let that pain overwhelm his life. Instead, he has used his fame as a tool for good. The connection between the role of goalkeeper and his life is clear. The goalkeeper is the one who stands alone in the goal and often has to bear the brunt of mistakes that are not his own. His life is the same, having to live with the ghost of Wembley, but he has stood firm, resilient and compassionate as he once protected the goal. However, the steadfast goalkeeper had to stop. On January 5, 2020, Hans Tilkowski passed away at the age of 84. He left with the secret of the Wembley goal line, but left behind a shining example of a gentleman in football. Wolfgang Overath, a 22-year-old with a very good left foot, was the brains of West Germany's playing style. Together with Beckenbauer, he created a fearsome midfield duo. Overath possessed a sharp tactical vision, precise long passes down the line, down to the millimeter, and the ability to masterfully control the tempo of the match. At the 1966 World Cup, he played all 6 matches, tirelessly transferring the ball, always keeping the German tank running smoothly. Overath's career was closely linked to FC Köln, where he was revered as a living saint. He was Günter Netzer's biggest rival in the battle for the number 10 position of the German national team, and the pinnacle was the 1974 World Cup championship right on home soil. After hanging up his boots, he did not choose the coaching path, but became the president of FC Köln, continuing to devote himself to his hometown team. In real life, Overath is a devout, private person and devoted much of his time to the social charity he founded to help the homeless. There is an interesting contrast. On the pitch, Overath is a powerful conductor, leading an orchestra. But off the pitch, he chooses a humble life, quietly contributing and avoiding the noise of the media. That is the character of a man of experience, who understands that the true value of life lies in giving. Today, at the age of 81, Wolfgang Overath lives a peaceful life with his family. Although his hair has turned gray, his eyes still light up with pride whenever he talks about 1966 or 1974. He is one of the few living witnesses who continues to inspire a romantic and heroic era of football. Karl-Heinz Schnellinger, 27, was nicknamed Volkswagen for his reliability and tenacity. He was one of the first German players to make a name for himself abroad. At the 1966 World Cup, Schnellinger was a solid stopper on the wing, neutralizing countless attacks with his intelligent play and athleticism. Without fanfare, he played with coolness and maximum efficiency. Schnellinger's career was closely linked to Italy, especially AC Milan, where he won every major club title. He lived most of his life in Milan, becoming a successful businessman after retiring. He was affectionately known as Carlo il Biondo, Blonde Carlo, by Italians. Although he scored his signature goal against Italy in the 1970 World Cup semi-final, the game of the century, in his heart, Italy became his second home. Schnellinger is the epitome of professionalism and adaptability. From a disciplined German player, he adapted and thrived in the calculating Italian football environment. His life is proof that football can erase all borders. However, the journey of that German with an Italian soul has also ended. On May 20th, 2024, Karl-Heinz Schnellinger passed away in Milan at the age of 85. His departure, just a few months after his teammate Beckenbauer, was another sad note for those who loved that golden generation. Siegfried "Siggy" Held, 23, is a formidable winger. His speed, skill, and crossing ability are vital in breaking down defensive structures. It was he who set up Weber's equalizer in the final minute, a shining moment of determination. Held's career spanned many big clubs such as Dortmund and Offenbach. After retiring, he became a nomad on the coaching bench, leading teams from Germany to Japan, Egypt, Malta, and Thailand. His life was a constant journey, always looking for new challenges. He was not too noisy in the press, but always respected for his dedication and extensive football knowledge. Held is like the wind on the field, always moving and elusive. In real life, he is the same, not willing to sit still, always on the move to bring his love of football around the world. Today, at 82, Siegfried Held is enjoying his retirement, but still maintains close ties with Borussia Dortmund as an ambassador. He is living proof of how far passion for football can take you. Wolfgang Weber, 21, nicknamed Bull by his teammates for his extraordinary physical strength, was a quiet hero who stepped into the spotlight when his team needed him most. His leaping goal to equalize in the 89th minute of the 1966 World Cup final has gone down in history as a symbol of the German spirit, never giving up until the final whistle. Weber played with a fearless spirit, even playing with a broken fibula in another match against England in 1965. Weber spent his entire career playing for FC Köln. After retiring early due to a persistent injury, he became involved in social activities, especially his commitment to the Special Olympics. He lived a simple life, close to the community, and always maintained an optimistic spirit despite his body being full of injuries from his years of fighting. Weber is a tough warrior on the field, but in real life he is a warm-hearted person, always reaching out to the less fortunate. That contrast only enhances the beauty of his personality. Today, at the age of 80, Wolfgang Weber still lives in Cologne. He regularly appears in the stands to cheer on his old team, a living monument reminding the younger generation of courage and sacrifice. Horst Dieter Hüttges, 22, was nicknamed Eisenfuß, Iron Legs. His name said it all. He was tough, uncompromising, and the terror of every striker. At the 1966 World Cup, he was a rock in defense, willing to do the dirtiest work to protect the goal. Hüttges was a Werder Bremen legend. After retiring, he made a successful living in the sportswear business, but his final years were shrouded in the darkness of dementia. It was a bitter tragedy for a man with a sharp tactical memory and an iron will on the pitch. He spent his final days in a nursing home, where memories of glorious matches gradually faded from his mind. His career was an image of strength and indomitability, but his life showed the fragility of human life before the law of birth, aging, sickness, and death. The iron leg on this football field could not finally kick away the disease of old age. On June 22, 2023, Horst Dieter Hüttges passed away at the age of 79. His passing left Bremen fans and the German national team in mourning, ending the journey of one of the toughest defenders in history. Lothar Emmerich, 24, was renowned for his powerful left foot and his thunderous shots from tight angles. His trademark goal against Spain in the 1966 group stage, a strike from an impossible angle, became his trademark. Emmerich was an instinctive, passionate player who always set the game alight. After the World Cup, he continued to be a prolific goal scorer in the Bundesliga and then moved to Belgium and Austria. After retiring, he worked as an inspector at a brewery and maintained a free-spirited, fun-loving lifestyle. He was loved for his straightforward, sincere personality as a son of the Ruhr. On the pitch, Emmerich was always on fire with his hammer-like kicks. Off the pitch, he lived his life with the same haste and enthusiasm, but unfortunately, that fire was extinguished too soon. The journey of Emma came to a tragic and abrupt end. On August 13, 2003, Lothar Emmerich died of lung cancer at the age of 61. He was one of the earliest to leave the golden generation of 1966, leaving a huge void and regret for a natural talent. Willi Schultz was the most reliable stopper right in front of goalkeeper Tilkowski. Not as flashy as Beckenbauer, Schultz played with astonishing composure and the ability to read situations like an open book. He was a classic center-back, strong in the air, decisive in tackling but rarely committing rough fouls. At the 1966 World Cup, he was the commander of the defense, creating a solid wall that helped West Germany advance to the final. His solidity was the launching pad for Beckenbauer to attack. After his success in England, Willi Schultz continued to be a mainstay of Hamburger SV and the national team for several more years. However, unlike many of his teammates who chose the coaching path, Schultz took a completely different path after hanging up his boots. He became a successful businessman in the gaming and insurance business, then joined the Hamburger SV board as a supervisor. He is known for being straightforward, not afraid to clash with the media or football officials if he sees anything unreasonable. His life is quite private, away from the noise of the past glory, enjoying the pleasures of the countryside at his farm in the German countryside. The connection between Schultz's role on the pitch and his life is sober. On the pitch, in the middle of the Wembley fire or intense matches, he always keeps the coolest head. Off the pitch, he also applies that mindset to business. Careful calculation, low risk and high efficiency. He is the embodiment of a practical German, doing everything with certainty and a plan. Today, at the age of 86, World Cup Willi is still living a peaceful and healthy life, although he rarely appears in public. But whenever mentioning the steel defense of the 60s, the name Willi Schultz is always placed in the most solemn position. He is one of the rare remaining historical witnesses, still lucid enough to tell stories of a glorious time. Sepp Maier is a young man with bright eyes and a humorous personality, wearing the number 21 shirt and has not played a single minute. But do not mistake his role as obscure. Maier represents the future, a student who is quietly accumulating experience from his seniors to prepare for a great transformation. He brings a cheerful atmosphere to the dressing room, an important factor in reducing pressure on the whole team. Sepp Maier's career exploded after 1966. He became the Cat of Ansing, Die Katze von Ansing, with his extraordinary reflexes and brave ball-catching style. Together with Bayern Munich and the West German team, he won a complete collection of titles. Euro 1972 champion, World Cup 1974 champion, and 3 consecutive European Cups. Maier was famous not only for his talent, but also for his sense of humor. He once chased a duck that strayed onto the field during a match. However, that illustrious career ended abruptly in 1979 after a serious car accident that nearly cost him his life. Overcoming the incident, Maier became a legendary goalkeeper coach, the teacher of Oliver Kahn and Manuel Neuer later. Maier's bond as a person is optimism. On the field, he flies, jokes and saves with a smile on his face. Off the field, even when faced with a horrific accident that ended his career, he did not let pessimism defeat him. He chose to stand up and pass on his passion to the next generation. Today, at the age of 80, Sepp Maier remains one of the most beloved figures in Germany. He retains his wit, regularly appears on commentary programs, and enjoys his old age alongside his new passions, golf and tennis. His journey is proof that a former reserve can become an immortal legend with constant effort. Albert Brulls played in the first 2 group stage matches of the 1966 campaign. He was a hard-working player with good individual skills and a wide range of activities. His role was not only to play, but also to act as a cultural bridge, bringing the modern football thinking of Serie A to apply to the team. With his experience, he was a spiritual support for his juniors like Beckenbauer or Overath in their first days of confusion at the big tournament. Brull's career was associated with Borussia Mönchengladbach in the early days, and then with his adventurous years in Italy with Modena and Brescia. He was one of the first mercenaries of German football to succeed abroad. After retiring, he returned to coaching small teams and participating in scouting work. His life was not too noisy in the press. He chose to quietly devote himself, searching and polishing rough diamonds for football. Albert Bruls was the embodiment of the trailblazer. On the pitch, he moved tirelessly to create space. During his career, he bravely played abroad when it was not yet common. He was a man of action, of few words but many actions, always ready to take on new challenges. However, the journey of that pioneer was to end. On 28 March 2004, Albert Bruls passed away at his home at the age of 67 after a long illness. His departure was somewhat quiet, as was the way he lived his last years, but his contributions to the integration of German football with the world were always recognized. Grabowski arrived in England as a reserve. He was young, skillful, and possessed of magical dribbling. His lack of playing time that year seemed to only increase the young man's desire to prove himself. He watched, learned, and waited for his chance. And that opportunity came. After 1966, Grabowski became the greatest legend of Eintracht Frankfurt. He was a key member of the West German team that won Euro 1972 and the World Cup 1974. People called him a football artist because of his flamboyant playing style, his crosses, and his absolute fair play spirit. After retiring, he worked as an interim coach but quickly withdrew to focus on the insurance business. Grabowski's life was closely linked to Frankfurt, where he was revered as a saint. He lived an exemplary life, respected for his humility and absolute loyalty to the club. The similarity between Grabowski on the field and off the field is elegance. He plays beautifully, respects opponents and referees. Off the field, he is a gentleman, always gentle and moderate. He proves that in football, you can win and still maintain your dignity. But then, the talented artist had to say goodbye. On March 10, 2022, Jürgen Grabowski passed away at the age of 77. His passing plunged the entire city of Frankfurt into mourning. Thousands of fans shed tears to bid farewell to a legend who had dedicated his life to the beauty of football. Werner Kramer was not a player who had been trained in an academy. He grew up playing football on the dusty streets. Small but quick and extremely skillful, Kramer played by instinct. In his only game in 1966, he made a number of spectacular plays. He was a working-class man who played for the pure joy of it. Aya's career was tied to MSV Duisburg and then Hamburger SV. He was a special star who did not like the constraints of iron discipline. Stories about him escaping the camp to drink beer or smoke cigarettes are still told by fans with mixed interest and tolerance. After retiring, his life was difficult due to injuries and health problems caused by his free-spirited lifestyle in his youth. He was not rich, not powerful, but was always loved by the people of Duisburg as a brother, a close neighbor. Werner Kramer is the complete opposite of the disciplined tank image. He is a people's artist. On the field, he draws spontaneous curves. In real life, he lives true to his emotions, without embellishment or pretense. He is the embodiment of the most primitive love for football, without calculation of gains and losses. However, that carefree life also came to an end. On February 12, 2010, Werner A. Kramer passed away at the age of 70 after many years of declining health. He was gone, but the anecdotes about the small player with the magical feet still live on in the drinking stories of football lovers in the Ruhr region.